Salvete omnes. This is exercise 7E from chapter 7. This does test a little bit on how well you're understanding the idea of cases. So, reading with attention to cases, you're expected to read through this on your own. I'm not going to duplicate it, but suffice it to say that, in reading Latin sense, it's always good to go from the beginning to the end instead of trying to say, okay, well, Davis is doing something, and then there's some slaves involved. Oh, wait, there's also boys, and oh, God, now somebody's getting annoyed, and then what do I do with it? Take the whole thing in first, commit to memory these cases so far, the forms, the declensions and the cases go this way. So commit those to memory, and I'm going to soon send a video. If you look on YouTube and you Google Latin declensions song, you'll see how deep declensions and cases go and how they can be easily memorized using a funny song by an old guy whose name I forget now, but if you Google Latin declension song and look for an older fella wearing a pair of glasses and has a funny voice, you can't go wrong. That's something I prescribe for my students all the time. So anyway, start with the memorization and start with reading carefully about cases and declensions, right? And then once you know these declensions and cases, once you can recognize cases in a sentence, then you're really in good shape to do this exercise right here. And so again, read through the whole thing, and then you'll see that some of these are easily identified as direct objects, and some of them are easily identified as nominatives or subjects. And that's really an important part in getting started and getting rooted in how Latin works. It's a critical thing, this idea of cases. In fact, it's really half the battle for a teacher most of the time, getting the cases memorized and getting the meanings or the purposes of those cases memorized. And if you've done that as a teacher, you've done something good towards getting students to understand Latin. So let's look at 7E. I'm going to be generous here and give you 3 out of 5 of these because I like this third sentence here. No. I'm going to scratch that. I don't want to give you the majority of it. This is you doing this, obviously, and not me doing the majority of this. So we're going to look at, let's say, the 2 harder or longer ones here. So question number 3 and question number 4, and you can do the shorter ones because if you have these ones illustrated, then the other ones should not be hard. So we're going to label 3 and 4 here. Create a little space here. So we'll start with 3. Davum et servos pueri vexare non timent. Now forgive me, I should have done this before, so you can fast forward 10 seconds while I type this out. Servos pueri vexare non timent. Davum et servos pueri vexare non timent. So reading with attention to cases, you're going to come across the first word here and you're going to say, okay, that's an accusative form. So Davis is not the one doing something here. Something's being done to him. Same thing goes for servos. Servos is accusative plural. Pueri, however, is nominative. As you can see right here, pueri, nominative, plural. And so we have our subject here, and then we have vexare, which is again an infinitive verb, and the verb that sort of initiates or kicks that infinitive into motion. So when we're translating this now, we're not going to start with Davis and the slaves, but we're going to start with the boys. That's nominative because of its ending. You can tell that there. So the boys. Actually, no, you're going to label this, right? So it asks you to identify subjects and direct objects as in the examples above, then translate. Okay, so davum, servos. Sorry, there's no long O there. I don't want to confuse you, but I don't always have time to change the letters and all that. So davum et servos equals direct objects, and therefore they are in the accusative case. You don't have to do that. You could just identify that they're direct objects. And then we have pueri equals subject, and therefore it is nominative. It's a nominative form, that is nominative plural ending there. And then the translation is, hopefully should be pretty clear if you follow the logic of those cases and how they work here. The boys are not afraid. We could also say something more stiff and formal if we want to. Do not fear to bother or annoy Davos and the slaves. So notice this is a very common error. Students think that, oh, this guy's name is now Davam. Well, no. He's still Davos. His name doesn't change every time that his name changes. Literally. He still stays Davos for us. He doesn't become Davam when he's in the accusative case. As a translation, we're still going to say he's Davos, right? So keep that in mind. I see that a lot. The boys are not afraid to bother Davos and the slaves. So again, subject, fear, noun, along with this other noun. Well, listen to me. Subject, verb with an infinitive verb, and then we have two direct objects. So there it is. Did I say that the subject is always first in the sentence? It is not. Typically it is. But in this case, maybe the boys are not afraid. Maybe the writer of the sentence wants to accentuate who the boys are not afraid to bother. In this case, like if you ask the question, who are the boys not afraid to bother? Then you might answer the question this way, because it sort of puts those direct objects, in a more prominent role in the sentence, you could say, by pushing them up to the front of the sentence. Anyway, this is probably more information than you need, so forgive me. Now let's see. Pueros, I'm going to start not putting long marks on here. Et puellas lupi semper terrent. This sentence, I hope you notice, has a very similar flow to number 3 here, in that it's got two direct objects. It's got a plural nominative, a plural subject that comes after those direct objects, and it's got a main verb. But it has this adverb now instead of this infinitive that was thrown in there. So this one will follow a very similar pattern. So we've got pueros and puellas are the direct objects. Pueros, puellas equals direct objects. And then we've got the lupi as the subject. So who is Loopy? Is this some new character? Hi, I'm Loopy. No, this is plural wolves, right? Lupus is wolf. So then we've got Loopy as wolves. So we say, similar to number 3, the wolves always frighten the boys and girls. So wolves always frighten, terrify, scare the boys and girls. And that's it. That's 3 and 4. I gave you the hard ones. Good luck on the easier ones.